this life insurance conversation you and I are so passionate about is a real protection and a real transfer of risk we all encounter, and we have no way to control it. My total addressable market, Hans, is everyone that breathes and needs money in the United States. 360 million people, and I will never be able to serve all of them. None of us understand how much time we have left. My mom didn't make her 44th birthday, dude. I just turned 40 in May, right?
I wouldn't change anything, but I wish my wife and I had gotten married sooner, started having a family sooner. It's like when you think about the day my daughter was born, the number of days I have left with her was fixed. I don't know the number, but it's a fixed, finite number. We need to take responsibility. If our financial planner fails us, it's our fault. It's not the financial planner's fault. All right, everybody, welcome to Remnant Finance. I got a special guest today, someone that we've been looking forward to chatting with. We had this vision of David Zapata, as well as another practitioner from the Factum team, and Brian and myself doing a group call. But given the situation with Brian being out of pocket for a bit, me and David are just going to chop it up here. So we've got David Zapata from Factum Finance out in Arizona and formerly in San Diego, where I'm at. Yeah. So welcome to Remnant Finance, David. How are you?
Brother, pleasure to be here. Have a lot of respect and love for you and Brian, and it's an honor for me to join your podcast and have conversation with you.
Yeah. So for those who are not familiar, we've talked about Factum and Kyle before on the podcast, and what I love about our industry in particular is that by all metrics, Factum is probably our leading quote competitor, i.e. they're the model of what we want to build. And so we don't have this mindset of like I want people to be introduced to Factum and how well they do this job. And if it we don't view ourselves as in competition. We're just all on the same mission. And so I really appreciate what Factum is. For those who are unfamiliar, it is a agency that does the same thing we do. They're more established. They're bigger. They've got a full production team. They've got behind the scenes folks. They're well-oiled machine of a company that does this really well compared to Brian and I, who are just two guys wearing all hats. They are the model of an agency that we aspire to be. But the really cool thing is Kyle Fuller, who is the CEO and founder of Factum, and David and Wade and the team there has been very transparent and willing to help us. They've really poured into us, into Brian and I, as agents and as business owners. And so we love working with Factum. And so if you look up just Factum Financial, you can find a wealth of resources, and David is one of their leading agents. And so, David, anything I missed on what Factum is, what you guys try to do?
I appreciate the kind words and the way you describe everything. I'll tell you, this is a spiritual idea. Forget money, forget anything else. Business is like abundance is abundance, and the way we see each other as collaborators, we have such value alignment with you and Brian. There's so many people in the United States that need help, community around money, around how to build more control. That is, it's myopic to think that we are in competition. There are people that only can hear Hans because they identify with Hans. They're your community. And there's only going to be people that hear my Colombian accent. They're going to be, that's my guy, right? So when you think about it that way, I joke about this. My total addressable market, Hans, is everyone that breathes and needs money in the United States. 360 million people. And I will never be able to serve all of them. So I look at it the opposite way. Thank God you're here. Thank God Brian is here. Thank God our community is here, because we're able to collaborate and bring more value to people.
Yep, absolutely. We've been to a couple of the business owner masterminds that Factum puts on, and it's been so helpful to have that full transparency and knowing that you and Kyle and Wade are just so willing to help us. So I've learned a ton, and it's the event that I am most excited about every year. So all right, so you said Colombian accent. Tell us a little bit about your background. Were you born in Colombia?
Born and raised in Colombia. I came to the United States in 2006 when I was 20 years old with my dad and my brother. Insurance for me starts very long ago in my life. I don't even think I've shared this with you. I may have. My mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, pretty advanced stage, when I was 13 years old. My brother was 7. And it was an event in our family that wrecked our family. My mom dies 2 years later. My brother is 9, I'm 15 years old, and it's 3 men in a house. And thank God my dad was a breadwinner, no insurance. But what that did was put in my head the fact that in the absence of protection, we fall prey to what's left. My dad went to work, I went to school, and it took us a really long time, 20 years, until I started having kids, to have conversations about how we mourn and how we dealt with had happened to our family. And that left a taste in my mouth that as I grew up and as I entered the workforce, I wanted to protect first my little brother, and also eventually a family that I would have with my kids, which I have today. I'm married, I have two kids. So moved to the United States in 2006. And then, typical immigrant story. I lived in New York for a couple of years, learning English, all kinds of odd jobs, just scraping my knees. Eventually, I was able to reconnect in university and finish my career in engineering. I had a background in mechanical engineering and went and worked for my programming. This is a second part of my programming, by the way. My dad is a professor of physics. Okay, so education, my programming was get an education, get the highest paying job, and that's success. And the goal for me became, how do I work for the biggest company with the most complex products so I can succeed in the United States? And I went and worked for General Electric in their aviation business and became an engineer working in their jet engine business for a decade. So from New York to Indiana to Ohio, I was working in Cincinnati, and that's where I was, finally arriving at what I thought was going to be the path for success, which ended up not being my path.
Yeah, that's interesting. Also having sort of an aviation
Yeah,
background.
background.
And so I'm sorry to hear about your mom. Did she pass before you moved to the States?
Yeah, yeah. So really interesting. My dad dreamed about moving to the United States in 1970 with his brother, sisters, and my uncle ends up coming to New York later in the 70s and asked for my dad. Brother to brother citizenship requests take around 15 years. From 91 or 10 years. From 91, we were supposed to come in 2001. 9/11 happens. All visas get paused. All visas get delayed. So we didn't get that opportunity until 2006. My mom passed away in 2003. So as a family, the plan was to go back to the insurance piece, man. And this is fascinating. We had delay as a family, a lot of experiences because it was my dad working in his master's degree, my dad working on his PhD. Once he gets there, we'll be happy. We'll take the vacations, we'll take the trips, we'll have the money. My dad finishes his PhD on 2000 December, as we do Y2K. We moved to our city from Bogota, the capital, to Barranquilla, where I was raised up north in the coast. 4 months later, my mom's abdomen distresses, and she gets diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I don't tell that story for people to have pity for me or nothing to do with that. It's just one example that is real in my life of how all we need to be thinking about first. This life insurance conversation you and I are so passionate about is a real protection and a real transfer of risk we all encounter. We all encounter, and we have no way to control it. So for me, it helps me have a lot of urgency in this conversation with anyone that I'm talking to. Whether they believe me or agree with me, that's fine. What they cannot question is my belief that this is really important because it happened
Yeah.
to my family. So I don't play around with my kids or with my wife. I know that, again, something, God forbid, were to happen to them. I understand the effects of this, so I take it very seriously, and I take that passion to my business.
Yeah, and once the more time you spend learning this and the more you study it, and at first it's kind of testing it and does this really make sense? Does this actually work? And then you kind of get almost defensive where it's like, I want to prove to you that this actually works the way that I mean, you it's a black and white contract. It simply works per U.S. contract law. It works as written, right?
Yeah.
That's not even debatable, but you want to get into, well, could it work for this person? Should you have it? Should you not have it? But at a certain point, the more you study it and the more you get a personal connection with how powerful it is. I don't have that same personal story there. I've got friends and people in our network,
Yeah.
even as of a week ago, who have passed unexpectedly and tragically, and seen, seeing kind of secondhand, I would say, the power of having a protection in place or not, or the destruction of not having protection in place. But I don't have that same personal resonance. But you get to the point where you're not going to be able to shake my conviction of this because I've seen it work and I understand it deeply inside and out. And I've spent so much time studying this, and not in just it's a sunk cost fallacy. surely I didn't spend my time studying something that's wrong. It's like you just understand and know this is accurate, this is correct, and I don't really care. And so you get out of the mindset of I'm not going to drag someone into this. I'm not in the convincing business. I'm not going to just try to talk stats. It's like it has to connect with someone, and they have to understand the value of the protection side of it. And unfortunately, that seems to happen for a lot of us. It seems to happen by by having that tragedy that where it's too late.
Yeah.
So I'm just glad that I'm sorry to hear that your mom, but like you said, thank God your dad was the breadwinner. But does that? Let's talk about insurance on the non-breadwinner spouse. Let's just kind of jump the gun here, because that is a situation where, think about your wife, right, Sarah? She does she work right now, or is she staying with your?
Yeah, she works in Factum. She leads our new
Okay.
business. She works,
Okay.
and she does it because she wants to be productive. She wants time with other adults. She wants to be of service. She has a long career being an ICU and a cardiac nurse. Like, she was productive her entire life, so she does it now. But to your point, like, and I'll say this being very transparent about this. I do not know how I wake up the next day, brother. If something happens to Sarah,
Right.
and I keep my wits
Right.
about myself, and then I look at my 5-year-old and at my 3-year-old, like, I'm going to lose my mind. Like,
Right.
the thought of it gives me chills to think about how did my dad keep his head together. Like,
Yeah.
I have incredible respect and love for my dad and appreciation for the fact that when that happened to him, he was able to be courageous enough to stay together and raise my brother and I as mom and dad. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done it for the last, now 20, 30 years. I don't know that and I'm sure the strength will come, but I know it would be an incredibly difficult thing. So there's no money that would replace Sarah. But I
Right.
do know that if we have protection, at least I understand that the environment in which I can go and try to survive that experience is created by space, is created by peace of mind, is created by, I do not want to be thinking about a mortgage payment. I don't want to be thinking about anything related to money
Right.
when I look at my boys, if that ever happened to us. And one thing that you said earlier that I want to highlight, you said I don't have a personal story. I will just tell you, yet all of us
Right.
will encounter
Right.
this. All of us have aging parents, all of us have children and spouse. All of It's a matter of time before we are put in this situation. How we encounter this is based on our preparation.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just like the thought of how does that even? How do you wake up the next day and
I
just
mean,
get through
think
the
about it.
day?
Yeah.
But I mean, at least knowing that you have that you'll be able to not provide the same as what your kid's mom provides, but at least you financially nothing has to change. And
Yeah.
it's like I don't want to think about it, and I think that's why people don't think about it, and people just assume. We hear other people have these stories, these sad stories, and it's very statistically unlikely per actuarial math, and so I don't want to think about it, and therefore I'm not going to address it because it is unlikely. And it's just that is just tragic short-sightedness, and I
Yeah.
think that is rampant in the financial planning industry.
You know what the irony of all is? You and I, with the large amounts of insurance we carry in our families, we don't think about it, Hans. And
Right.
that's the thing. We don't think about it because we've transferred that risk. So you and I
Right.
are not being morbid. We're passionate about this conversation to talk to others. But you and I personally are at peace because we've taken care of it. And that's what people need, implementation, so they can actually stop thinking about that risk.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will be working whether I'm here or not for my
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
if something happens.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you're kind of you're living the American dream. You've come to the States. You're in New York. You've got your degree. You're working for a large company, doing well. How does the transition to insurance happen after 10
Yeah.
years in at GE?
Yeah, I go in there and I get into an engineering program, the Edison engineering program. It's a very prestigious program. I work on my master's degree, and man, my obsession is how do I become, how do I climb this ladder, right? And the truth is that the more time I spend in there, it was wonderful work, it's wonderful technology, it's a wonderful company, and I could have continued a career there. But there was something in the back of my head telling me that I needed to seek something more purpose. And I had several experiences where I went through several rounds of layoffs, and I watched them lay off the 56-year-old, the 62-year-old with 3 kids in college. Not me, the 20-something-year-old that knew nothing. They laid off the people that had the most experience. I went through several experiences where I saw a lot of my coworkers afraid of retiring after 40 years. What do I do with my life? Almost lost.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people being offered early retirement and doing math in a notebook to see if they had enough money to live for the rest of their life for 30, 40 years concerned. The number one fear of baby boomers, 70 million people today, Hans. Number one is, will I run out of money before I die? Okay.
Yeah.
And these are people that have some of the most advanced technical knowledge in the world, some of the best. So it put the thought in my on the back of my head, is this really the goal? Is this really what I've been striving for? Does this deliver? And it took me down a path where like I just wanted to educate myself about alternatives. By the way, when I entered the workforce, I love thinking about this. And I don't know if this is the same in the military, so I'm not familiar, but you'll have to tell me. When I signed my contract to become an employee, all these benefits come associated to it, right? Like healthcare, blah blah. I don't remember signing up for a 401k. I was 2 months. I joined GE in 2011. I was 2 weeks or 2 months away from being able to qualify for their pension. So I don't remember doing any of this. And I was assigned working with someone that was giving me financial advice on how to do allocations, right? I had a financial plan. Part of that was buying life insurance, which I was immediately very open to. I wanted to protect my brother. If something happened to me, right? I told you about this. But the guy was the quarterback, and I was a passenger in the bus, and I had no idea where he was driving. Really interesting. So I started doing this study 5 years into my career there, and I learned a ton about real estate, and I learned about how people are investing in other companies. And I go to all this. I started pouring a lot of my money into how do I get knowledge and experience and visibility? How do I see other successful people? Because I couldn't find people at GE that looked like the way I wanted to when I grew up. Couldn't
Yeah.
find somebody that looked like a grown up that I wanted to be. They just work more for marginal gains and stock options, and that was just not the game that I wanted. So, in the middle of all these seminars and different classes, my brother called me one day. He was living in Texas, and he said, "Hey, you need to listen. You need to read this book, Becoming Your Own Banker." I just sat down through this 2-hour class. I've never heard anyone. I don't understand what this guy said, but I think you would love it. And it's my little brother, so I listened, thank God. And I just picked up the book, and that was it, man. That was 2015 for me. I read the book once. I didn't understand what it said. I couldn't relate to the analogies. Nelson Nash, the author of Becoming Your Own Banker, for anyone that is listening, is a southern, 70-year-old man from Alabama. I'm a Colombian foreigner immigrant, right? So the grocery store and, being a forester, I didn't know what a forester, I thought a forester was an attorney, dude. Okay. I couldn't understand a lot of the things he was saying in there. I just knew there was something in it, and I read it 2 times, 3 times. I called the guy that my brother had talked about the seminar, and I started having conversations, and it just became an obsession that I haven't been able to stop, man. I think about this when I wake up. I think about it when I go to bed. So that's how I got introduced into it.
So, all right, before we'll bottle that up right for now. I want to go back a little bit and just what you kind of addressed it with sitting down with the person at GE, and you just kind of get put on a course and just here you're an autopilot and just do this, this, and this, and then don't ask too many questions. I think we've all been there, starting a job, and you didn't know if you signed up for a 401k or not, but they probably just put you into it. How would you describe financial education? I mean, is the Colombia system as bad as the American system? Like you can graduate high school, graduate college, and get a master's and have zero financial literacy, and that's
Zero.
probably common. That's probably the norm here. Is there any emphasis, like start with Colombia? Did you have any kind of financial literacy either through your family or through the school system? And then university system, how would you rate your financial literacy, and did you study it, or was it just not talked about? And then same thing at GE. You kind of
Yeah.
mentioned GE already, but
I'll tell you, it's funny. At this point, I've gone to 5 universities, maybe between Colombia and the United States. And in Colombia, I mean, you have to think also the contrast, right? It's a country with an incredible amount of unemployment. I don't know what the stat is now, 50, 60% unemployment.
50?
Most employment in Colombia is informal. People that send gum and water on the street, right? It's a third world country, right? So the economics compared to the United States is ridiculous. When we complain here about 3, 4, 5, 6% unemployment and we go into a recession,
Yeah.
Go outside the United States and understand that half of the country doesn't have formal employment because the opportunities do not exist. That when I was living in Colombia, and I don't know what it is now, but I remember like the minimum salary maybe being $700 a month. I don't know. Right now, maybe $1,600 a month in dollars. It is. It gives you great perspective to get outside our American bubble and look at the
Yeah.
rest of the world to understand how blessed we are. How why Buffett calls this the ovarian lottery, and I thankfully got it by naturalization. But it is humbling how we complain
Yeah.
about our own problems when you see other people. The world stat, you've seen this when we share our seminars. The top 1% income around the world is 34 grand a year. 34 grand a year. To make more
Wow.
money than 99% of humans in this planet, you need to make in absolute numbers. And I know there's, people will question, oh, the cost of doesn't matter. $34,000 makes you earn more than 99% of the world. That's 8 billion humans, man. Okay.
Yeah.
So in Colombia, for me, the mentality, at least that I had from my upbringing, is money was not really a conversation. I saw my dad be very disciplined with paying his bills, very responsible. But the conversation was never about entrepreneurship or abundance. My dad was a professor. We didn't really have entrepreneurship directly. My direct family, I do have some extended family, but I didn't really have contact with it. And when I made decisions about college, for example, my decisions in my head, nobody told me this. This is just programming. I need to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Those are the only places where I'll be able to get a job and find financial success. No medicine, no lawyer. I was good with math. I picked engineering. It had nothing to do with love for engineering. It had to do with choice, with options
Yeah.
and limited options, right? So I go through college there for 2.5 years. Don't remember any financial literacy. I come to the U.S. I go to other, like I said, finish my undergrad, went to grad school. Funny enough, I have a minor in economics, so I took a bunch of economics classes, and yeah, demand, supply, and all that stuff you learn academically. But if
Yeah.
I would venture to say that most economists and most people that have advanced degrees in economics or finance would still be in the side that says, I could use some more understanding of how money works.
Yeah.
And I say that with a lot of respect for anyone listen. I think that would be a fair statement because it's a very different conversation intellectually to understand a corporate financial statement versus what's really happening with my relationship with money intrinsically. How do I view money? How do I use it? How do I follow the proper sequence and rules? Which is what you and I are so passionate about bringing to the public, right? We work with
Yeah.
business owners, families that are likely wealthier than you and me, man, if we're honest, right?
Yeah.
And yet what we're teaching is relevant because it's a way for them to create a framework that unfortunately doesn't exist in our school system, in our universities, in our communities, in our churches. I think that's why what we do is so relevant for our community.
Yeah. That's incredibly powerful. I saw from my economics professors in grad school, I remember having this. I didn't understand what I would pay any amount of money to go back to the same program with
Yeah.
the same professors now, with my current understanding and knowledge, because I would love to ask more pointed questions. And at the time, I was just starting to read The Creature from Jekyll Island. I was just starting to switch from an obsession with personal finance from from the typical point of view,
Yeah.
like you always max out your qualified plans first. The first thing you do with your money is set it aside for 65. Obsessed with like a very intentional and like self-motivated to study personal finance. Switching from that and the light bulbs first starting to come on of, wait a second, like everything I've thought about money is it's not necessarily incorrect, but it is improperly ordered and it's got the wrong emphasis. So I'm reading The Creature from Jekyll Island. I'm starting to learn about fractional reserve banking for the first time. And I'm asking professors who, like Larry Summers and Janet Yellen, who are big names in the economic academic world,
Yeah.
Jason Furman, who is Obama's chief economic advisor. I'm
Yeah.
asking them these questions as I'm learning, and I'm skeptical. But I'm like, you're clearly the expert. But then their answers, when I would say, hey, how long can we keep doing this? How long can we continue to just fund an unlimited amount of spending via deficit spending and just having the treasury, or like, the Fed monetizing the debt from the treasury? Like, how long can this go on? And when do we stop? And they they just all said it doesn't need to stop. As long as people continue to believe, it doesn't need to stop. And I just remember that that's not a satisfactory answer. And I would imagine now, knowing what I know, if I had the same conversation with them that I had with clients, they are experts in the mechanics of central banking, how central banking works, how the macroeconomy works, these models, whether they're accurate or not. I think most of them are just kind of, theoretical nonsense, doesn't actually apply to reality. Regardless, they can be experts in this. They are professors of this central banking concept. But on the personal balance sheet side, they never bridge the gap of here's how banks do things, here's how we do things. And so I think that no matter what level of education you're at, whether it's Colombia or whether it's a master's program here with a former Fed secretary or Fed chairman and Treasury secretary as a professor, anywhere in between, you're not getting financial education the way that we present it and the way that we try to help our clients think through it.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because you've had that exposure to very sophisticated individuals, very prominent people, powerful people in our world. And you have to ask yourself, what's the incentive mechanism in this whole interaction, right? Like what are they trying to program majority of public and even people that have exposure to their education, like to do? And I think the conversation that comes to mind, and I know you know where I'm going here, is control. Control is such an important conversation. As a matter of fact, if I go back to that 2015, I'll tell you, I can remember the day I sat down with a financial advisor in a coffee shop in the middle of Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm trying to get more, I'm reading all these books. I'm reading, the book that you just mentioned. I'm reading Pirates of Manhattan. I'm reading all this stuff that I'm getting exposed to. I'm asking questions. Hey, tell me my allocations and tell me this and tell me that and why would I? And the guy gets, you can imagine, gets really flustered, and he says, "Hey, let me just quarterback. Let me just tell you what you need to do, and not so many questions. You need to go focus in your career, kind of thing." And at the time, this is one of those memories that you're like, man, I am so angry with myself for not reacting the way I should have. I didn't have a way to come back. I just wasn't solid in my ground, right? I didn't have the backbone to. And I went and sat down in my car, and I was steaming, man. I was like, this mother effer, just should have not talked to me like that. I need to be the quarterback in my, and I always knew that. I'm very contrarian. I wanted to be the quarterback. I wanted to do it my way, and it's the best gift that guy could have ever given me. I think that was a God meant experience, man, because it set me up into a path of no more. I need to fire this guy, and I need to find my own answers. I keep going back to control, even not understanding Nelson's book, even not understanding some of the economic stuff that I continue to read and try to understand. At the you and me level, the idea of control and the idea of understanding that no one out there has the incentive to teach us how to have more control is what should drive our curiosity. I think that is so, so key. And it's less about bad or good, better or worse. This is bad, that is good, this asset, this. It needs to be your journey, Hans. It needs to be my journey. What aligns with me? What makes sense to me? There's not one way to win this game. It would be silly to think that Buffett did it wrong or right. It would be silly to think that the guys with the largest REITs in the world and putting funds around real estate. There's multiple ways to do this, but you need to find your way where you can be the quarterback, when you can lead, where you can put money values that you want to, so you can, again, be an example, lead others, lead your family, lead a business with your own culture, your own. I think that's become probably the most important lesson in this whole journey for the last, 10, 11, 12 years now. Even talking to clients, even talking to you, I would never anymore have the audacity to tell you right or wrong or right. I'll tell you what I think, and you'll believe that I believe. But ultimately is to empower you to decide what's right for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's funny. I can see on the side of my hat here, but our slogan,
Stop being
being a passenger. Stop being a passenger.
I love that.
It's that idea that, we kind of take the aviation theme, but you're not along for the ride, or in a car, you're not a passenger in the car. It's your family's money. It's nobody cares more about your family's money. And look in the rearview mirror at your kids and be like, am I getting them where they're going, or I'm going to let someone else take control of this? And I think that I found that framing really resonates with fathers. And I've had quite a few guys where, we say, stop being a passenger. We say you need to become the CFO for your family.
Yeah.
And that people specifically said that resonates, where they're like, well, shit, I'm not doing that at all. Like, how am I going to raise my kids to be responsible with money when I don't really know anything? I'm just trusting someone else, and I
Yeah.
don't even know where I'm going, so I don't know if I'm on pace to get there.
Yeah.
And so that idea of stopping a passenger, become the CFO of your family's financial future, those messages are constant reminders to me
Yeah.
of like, I have to be knowledgeable enough and responsible. And I think we have to make it, as they say, like Nelson Nash would say, everyone's in two business, the business that you're in and the banking business. And so
Yeah.
we want you to control and understand that so that you reap the rewards and the benefits of that. And it's like, I don't think it's an excuse to say, well, I'm just not interested in finance. It's just not my thing. It's too confusing. I don't have time to study it. I'm like, I'm sorry. At this point, like, when you see what's happening, when you understand, even if you don't really understand the macroeconomics at all, when you see what the banking industry, when you see what's happening, I'm sorry, you need to. I don't care if you're not interested in it. You need to get interested in it. Is how I approach it. Like, you need, here's 3 podcasts. Listen to these every time they come out as a kind of a little like teaser for your palate. You need to get obsessed with this, because this needs to become your second job. Stop listening to music. Replace music listening on a walk with learning about economics. And I maybe it just comes easy to me because that's what I do anyways. But I think that we owe it, especially as fathers, and we try to our messaging is very heavily towards fathers. We basically just directly speak to fathers in how we present this material, because that is where it hits the hardest. And I think as men, we've kind of had a lot of this stripped away, or culture attempts to strip this away. But no, it's our families. We need to be guiding the ship here, right?
Yeah.
And we need to take responsibility. If our financial planner fails us, it's our fault. It's
Yeah.
not the financial planner's fault. You outsource that, and just outsourcing that responsibility, I think. And I think experiences like you had, where you see it firsthand, can help accelerate that feeling of need. But hopefully we can intervene and get people thinking that way beforehand.
Yeah, and it's funny to hear you say that. I've heard you talk about this, and I know you better now. And like, for anyone listening, like that's authentic leadership. The reason you guys are having so much success and find so many fathers, parents, leaders that resonate with that is because that's you, Hans. And I love that. That's why we started this conversation with, like, there's no competition. It's collaboration. I know so many people that would resonate with what you're doing. A lot of them are in my community too, because you and I share that value and we're very passionate about it. I will also tell you, there's a lot of people I used to work with at GE, which would think that we're crazy and would never think that what we're talking about is right, and they want guidance and they want somebody to take that part of their life away from them. No right or wrong. I think, again, we need to have grace and respect for everyone's journey. Everyone, part of self-reliance is also to focusing in our business, not criticizing anyone else's. And I think about that a lot. But I want to edify a point that you're making there connected with this, which is in the book, and I know you know this, Nelson talks about the fact that if we were to redistribute the money across 100% of humans, right, it would take only a few years for that money to be concentrated in the top 3%, and the money will be transferred from the bottom 97 to the top 3%. And obviously, it's an empirical thought. It's an idea. It's not something that we've measured ever, because we've never done that experiment. But every time I share that idea with someone, people gut check resonate with that. They're like, yeah, that sounds right. That makes sense. And the point you're making to your audience here of like, hey, we all need to make this part of our business. It needs to be a priority, is because that is a reality. And the absence of attention to this makes you part of the 97% transferring money to the top 3%. And the last thing I'll add to that is this. I think in our community, sometimes we do a disservice when we make the ultimate goal, the destination, the money, the control, right? And I think the part that a lot of people are missing in our conversation, which you and I talk a lot about, I know, is, hey, the only reason you and I focus so much on serving our community in their relationship with money is because we understand that there's an undeniable, inseparable connection to everything else. The way you show up to your relationship with yourself, with your family, with your spiritual life, with your community, it's a function of your relationship with money. If you have a lot of abundance in economics, you're going to give more, you're going to spend more, you're going to, have better quality of life yourself, with your health, with your mental health. You're going to be better in business. So the destination is to have an abundant life, to be the best expression we have as parents, as leaders, right? But money, do not dismiss this. It's a really critical part. And our relationship with money is like every other relationship. I do not pretend to send somebody to pray for me to a church and have a good relationship with God. I'm a Christian. I'm a Catholic, raised Christian. I do not send somebody to go work out at the gym for me, pretending I'm gonna get jacked, right? I do not. I don't send my kids to Europe to boarding school for 18 years and expect them to come back and love me. That's not how this works. And yet, a lot of us pretend that we can send money to a financial manager for 30 years and expect to have a well relationship at retirement with money when we have never developed that relationship with it, you know?
Yeah.
So this is a contact sport. This is a, if people say to me, I don't understand this, the one thing I add to that is yet. All of this can be learned. You and I are not more intelligent or more savvy. You and I are just two human beings with the same capacity that everyone that comes through our business. And if you want to find out, it's a question of willingness. Do you want to know for sure how this works so you can lead? I think that's a separator.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely resonate with the idea that like money facilitates so many other things. 10 plus years for both of us in W-2 employment, there's a kind of stress that you simply don't feel. Not that you don't have stress about money. I think everybody does,
Well,
but there is a different type of stress going from that W-2 guaranteed salary income to entrepreneur income, right? And so you could ask my wife that my interactions with her and my daughters and whether I'm mentally present or not, it's pretty well tied to business. And it's just this, it's like our business is going well, but it's this constant stress of
yep.
up to today, things are going well, but in a business that is not certain, that has no guarantees and has no consistency, that's solely based on how we present this, whether or not people actually resonate and want to go through and put policies in force, and whether people engage with our content. Like there's no resting or stopping because there's nothing certain. The only things that are actually in the bank, the only money that's in the bank is what's already there. Like there's nothing guaranteed in the future. That kind of that stress where it's like it can ebb and flow. Where if we kind of, with Brian being deployed in a 2-person operation, we're down by 50%. If things slow down, I feel that stress in a way that's different than I've never felt with typical financial stress of close to 15 years in the Navy, 12, something like that, whatever. Like you have that safety net feeling, but there is a direct correlation. It's not like I'm happier when I have more money. It's just I can breathe easier, and it's like kind of like oil in the engine of relationships, oil in the engine of my comfort and passion for this work. It's like if you're starving that engine, it becomes harder, even though it's not that the oil itself matters. It's just it facilitates the other things you do. Kind of a loose analogy there, but that did resonate when you're talking about that. So let's go back to, we'll pick back up. You read Becoming Your Own Banker. You get obsessed with this. Take us from there to now. How did you how did you meet Kyle? How did you get into, when did you mentally decide this is what I'm going to do with my life? I'm going to quit GE. How did we get to now?
Yeah. So I'll tell you another pivotal thing here that, I read the book and new ideas, man, control and how you finance everything in life. What are you talking about? Cash and credit. And what are you talking about? The different ways to buy a car with a CD, with a life insurance policy. What are you talking about, man? Like, by the way, people dismiss this. Like the way to use life insurance, the way we're able to do it in the United States and Canada is pretty unique. Like the fact that life insurance itself is a product of free market in American culture is fascinating to me. We dismiss this. We think that everyone can do this. I asked one of my professors when I'm working on my CLU, and I asked one of my professors, "Hey, what are the downsides of life insurance, of whole life insurance?" People ask me all the time, "Where's the catch?" And his response was fascinating to me. He said, "This is a product of privilege. You must have the money, the background, and the health to be able to access it, which is why top 20% of society actually uses this asset in a meaningful way because they're actually privileged to do so." So I'm reading all these ideas, in the context, the reality of my life, Hans, is this. I'm doing everything right, I felt. I am earning as much as I can at this stage of my life, and I'm trying to get a promotion. My wife is a charge nurse at an ICU. She's earning six figures. I'm earning six figures. We're earning a lot of money. I am a 28, 30-year-old, and I am delaying the most important part of my life today, the best part of my life, which is having children, because I don't know if I can afford them. Two
Yeah.
young people, no kids, no responsibilities, no pets, no mortgage. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is
Yeah.
embarrassing, but it's the reality. Making a
Yeah.
significant amount of income, we couldn't save $400 a month because it was all going out spending. I worked my
Really.
ass off all week on the weekend. And again, I'm not blaming the system. It was my lack of leadership, my lack of awareness, my lack of self-reliance on how do I take control of this. I'm putting money in a qualified plan. I have a new car. I have all this money leaking out of my life, right? And I'm asking myself, how in the world am I ever going to be able to afford having children? How am I going to pay for school? How am I ever going to pay for diapers and things like that? That may sound silly to some people listening in this call, but I'm telling you, if you get a group of men in their 30s in a safe space where there's no people that are going to judge them, a lot of them will share the same experience I'm describing. How do men go in a generation to the other one to having children as early as possible in their 20s and leading a family with five, six kids, one single,
Yeah.
to now a generation that is delaying buying houses for the first time until age 40? Is the average first time buyer. Delaying children into their 30s. I was delaying the best part of my life because I had
I
self
understand.
doubt about my ability to be self
Yeah.
reliant. And
Yeah.
that, again, embarrassing, sad at this point, I don't care, who cares? But I share this openly because if you're in this listening to this podcast and you're listening to this, I'm telling you, the light on the other side of that conversation in your own head is to realize you're meant to lead, you're meant to take control, you're meant to learn and go and thrive. And I did it, you've done it, many people. So that was the context, by the way, that I'm living through. And I find this book, brother, I couldn't stop. I read it 10 times. I read other books by Nelson, by Carlos Lara, by Murphy. Fascinating books. The Case for IBC. And I just started getting into this space more and more and more. It took me like 6 months to really understand what was happening there. I was really slow. I didn't want to just move fast. I am a very knowledge driven person. I needed to understand it. And once I understood it, it just took off. And I was a consumer. I'm not an agent. I'm not a professional in this space. I'm just getting policy one, then a policy on my girlfriend at the time, not even my wife. Then I had the thought, hey, these qualified plans are really not delivering what I want. I'm going to take some of that money, buy a third policy, in a span of 2.5 years, I have four policies that I wanted to amass and concentrate capital as soon as possible because I understood that if I could do that and then I capitalize my family, my life, the solutions would emerge. The solutions to be able to invest and create passive income, to finance things more effectively, to control money permanently, which the control of money permanently would show up in my life. And it's exactly what happened. I went from not being able to save with great incomes to saving in a matter of years 60% of my income with my wife, eliminating all low value spending, traveling more, getting married. 60% of our income started to get saved and our policies took off. Maxing PUAs, our capital increase. And, from there it was just obsession. And that took me all the way to 2019. Somebody said to me, hey, you are a client, but man, the way you talk about this, the way you talk to other people, you refer people all the time, you share this. I was buying the book to give it to my friends, dude. I was giving it to coworkers. I just obsessed. They planted the seed. Why don't you get licensed and become an agent part-time? And that thought had never occurred to me, man. The ego in me, like how would I ever become a life insurance salesperson after I have a master's degree and I work for General Electric Aviation? I'm trying to
Yeah.
become, it's an ego thing. How do I let go of the identity that I've created for how I describe what is that I do and my ability to But I was overtaken, man. What this was doing in my life, not only just my obsession with it and my satisfaction of learning this, but what it was doing for me and my wife, bringing us together, bringing alignment in our marriage, bringing confidence to our life. We were traveling more than ever, financing these trips with life insurance. Just it brought me into a lot of clarity, and I knew the path was going to be here. So at that point, Kyle had started Factum at the end of 2018, and I went to a seminar with all of them to the end, and I was fascinated by what they were talking about there. And I told Kyle, "Hey, I'm gonna get licensed. I'd love to be appointed." And started working with someone there, and that was it. That was my initiation into Factum, and little by little, I, did it part time for a few years, kidding myself that I was doing that from my living room. And one day I had to go all in. I let go of GE, and it's been, a full time career that I've, don't plan of ever letting go, because it's what I want to do the rest of my life. I want to teach this to as many people as I can in my lifetime.
Yep. Was Kyle the agent that wrote your initial policies, or how did you get connected with him?
Yeah, the guy that was my agent was working with Ray, which was the agency that Kyle and some of these other
Okay.
agents were working under. And when Kyle left that agency, they all moved into Factum. So I was a client of Factum's initially. And then I told him, "Hey, I really like what you're doing. I like your education approach. I like the way you speak about this. I want to be part of your community." And we've been building together since.
Yeah, awesome. I wrote down what you mentioned about like delaying having kids, and I actually wrote an article addressed to the husband of a cousin of mine who was we're not ready. He was in that same mindset. I'm not ready right now. I just want to wait. So I wrote an article. It's on our blog. It's called The Waiting List. But I basically made the case that like all of the reasons that people say for waiting and putting off are reasons that once you actually have a kid, switch, i.e., the finances. Right when you start, if you think you're not ready financially, the quickest way to get ready is to have that weight on you. Same thing as like Parkinson's law is talked about in the book. If you have that pressure and you don't have a choice, you're gonna do it. Like the CLU. I'm wrapping up my CLU right now, and I got a scholarship to do the CLU, and I have to do it on a timeline. So I'm going to do it. I know that if I didn't have this timeline, I would be still on the first course. And instead, I'm taking my estate planning exam tomorrow, wrapping it up. And it's because I have that pressure, or, the idea that if you're given 3 days to write an essay in college, it'll take you 3 days. If you're given 30 days to write the same essay, it's going to take you 30 days to write it.
Yeah.
In the same way, once you have your kid and you realize nothing else I was doing before matters, it's like get there as soon as you can. And I think that getting back to having children in your early 20s is the way to do it. And I wouldn't change anything, but I wish my wife and I had gotten married sooner, started having a family sooner. It's like when you think about the day your daughter, or your son's for you, daughter's for me, like the day my daughter was born, the number of days I have left with her was fixed. I don't know the number, but it's a fixed finite number.
Yeah.
I can't get any more of those days. The
Yeah.
only way I could have gotten more days is had she been born earlier. And
Yeah.
so I don't want to cost myself those days, because now I can barely remember what it's like to not have kids. So not really what we're talking about here, but just for if there is anyone who's in that situation where you're just waiting because of finances, because of experiences, stop. Like
Yeah.
stop and check out the waiting list on our blog. I wrote that specifically with one person in mind, but I have enough people that I'd had that conversation with. So okay,
I
so
couldn't I couldn't resonate with more. I'll tell you one more thing. Like, and I think this is so powerful you're saying there. I hope everyone catches that. Like, none of us understand how much time we have left. My mom didn't make her 44th birthday, dude. I just turned 40 in May, right? Like, I think about this all the time, and I know it's a thought probably I shouldn't have. But if I had 3 more years with my boys, man, like, what would I do? Like, it's a really sovereign, focusing thought. So I am
yeah,
all about being dad right now, and but it applies to everything. If you want a car that you've dreamed about since you were 9 years old, if you want a vacation, if you want to see a place, if you want to go to a concert, if you want to see someone, if you want to invest in an asset class that you've always looked up to, the best day is to start thinking about how can I right now. And part of that is a function of your relationship with money. How do you position yourself to do that as soon as possible? It is not going to be waiting until age 65 to give yourself permission to access money you've been putting away forever. That
right.
model, not right or wrong, just was not the model that was going to work for my life.
Yep, absolutely. We had a guy in our group. It was an aircraft crash a week ago.
Sorry to hear, brother.
40 years old, 3 children. I had sent messages to him before, and fortunately, in the platform that we use, you can set when the messages delete, and my conversation with him deletes every week. So I couldn't see what I had talked about with him up to March 25th, which was the last message. But I know we'd have conversations about IBC. It never resonated. And so I don't know what the situation is, but thinking we all think we always think we're going to get to 65. We think we're going to get to the point where we are going to live off those assets. If you're not, but way more important than the money element of it is like, he didn't know his days. I mean, the days are finite. There was a lot fewer days than he thought he was going to get.
Yeah.
And that's heartbreaking.
So sorry, brother. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's talk about Factum. When did you move? I mean, okay, so you're in Arizona right now. When did you move to Arizona? And when did this
I was in
all
San
really
Diego.
become-
Yeah, I moved to San Diego in 16. I wanted to seek the best weather in the country. I love that place, man, and I think I want to go back. We'll see. A lot of complications, as you're aware of, to be in the great state of California, unfortunately. But moved to Arizona in 22. I wanted to take things to the next level. Seriously, be close to Kyle, be close to the headquarters, just go all in. Move here. Wonderful place, been a great place for my family, other than the fact that it's 105 degrees outside right now. It's a lovely state. And since then, man, it's been a complete focus on how do we build this to be a company with service for a community of agents and a community of clients that are focused on understanding this idea of permanent control through a combination of education and implementation. So at this point, just to give you an idea of where we are in our journey, we have around 2,300 clients or so, active clients with a persistency of 99 point something percent. So our clients understand this asset very well, which, like you and I, never plan on leaving them because we understand the value of it. We work in all states except, well, we work in New York as well. So we work in all 50 states. We have around, I think, $1 billion of protection assets that we service through our clients. And the approach we take is what you were describing is, how can we go and build a community of aligned individuals, professionals? We have agents in many states, around 20 agents or so right now on the team, maybe a little more, and growing. We want to grow a larger agency where we can coach people on how to run a proper business to service people the right way. How do we properly educate people so they make their own decision and they understand not only how to own insurance, but to use insurance in the implementation of the infinite banking process if that's what they want. And we see that process in 4 stages, as you probably have seen us talked about before. No right or wrong, just different parts and mechanics to where you are in relationship to your understanding of this. People that use the asset as a saver, they just want to diversify where they put money. They're just going to put there. They benefit from all these benefits that we talk about in our practice. Just to rattle few guarantees, compounding daily, liquidity, privacy, the ability to borrow against with the flexible loan provision, monthly growth, competitive yield, and an income-free tax protection transfer of wealth we call death benefit, right? So all that available in a single asset with no trade-offs. This is not an investment. This is just a place to store capital that offers all those benefits and maximizes the ability to produce effective cash reserves. So the saver, and then from there we go into the utilization part, which is what Nelson introduced. How do we use this to pay debt? How do we use this to do wealth creation, to buy assets? A third option is, hey, how do we now get a portfolio of these things? And we build a system that we treat as a business. My wife and I see all of our policy portfolios, policies we have in ourselves and our kids, my dad, right? It's a portfolio of policies in business. And we treat that as a separate business in addition to what we do for a living, which is to run an agency ourselves. And then all that to the ultimate stage, which is infinite banking, which is what you and I do, which is a stage of significance and value here. You and I are not looking at these assets as a piece of paper that we own and it's just an asset. You and I look at this as a way to teach our children over time how we think about money as a family, how we have spousal conversations about money. Sarah and I cannot talk about money without saying the word policy, right? It's integrated into our family. It's integrated into our estate plan and our trust. It's integrated into our business financing. It's integrated into our investment strategy because it's a way of living. It's a mindset, a process, and a product that is a way of living for us on how do we create more permanent control. So all that is the approach we take at Factum, and we do that in many ways. You mentioned, we do a couple of live events in Indianapolis in the spring, in Scottsdale in the fall for agents. We do monthly education for our clients. We have 14 courses, 30 hours of content that we distribute to our clients to do continuing education on the basis of the following. We do not want to do transactional business, Hans, and I know you don't either. I am not State Farm, or I am not looking for someone to come into my office and say, hey, can you give me a quote for $1 million life insurance policy? That's not how my business works. If people are looking for a piece of paper they take and they put in a drawer, they only are going to look at it when somebody dies or gets sick. I'm probably not going to be your best fit if I'm honest. I'm looking for relationships. I am asking people, am I the right person to be in your wealth team? And are you the right person to invite into my business? If we have alignment, I'd love to be part of your life for the next 30 years. I would love to help you teach your children what you started 10 years ago. As a matter of fact, I tell people, my definition of success is being in your kitchen. You're making dinner for us, and I'm talking to your children about what you are doing. That is a great, successful relationship as being part of your team. And I have that kind of relationship with many of my clients, thankfully. And I continue to work towards that. But a relationship, why? Because getting the insurance, getting the contract is the easy part. Anyone can do that with a pulse. Anyone can print an illustration. Anyone can give you some basics, right? The trick is going to be, where's the man in the arena, the woman in the arena that wants to go down the hall with you, right? And help you. And hey, at this stage of my life with the circumstances, how would I use this? How would this protect me? And that's a lifetime of priorities that change, by the way. You and I in our 30s, 40s, have a very different growth mindset, investment mindset that we will have as we get wealthier and we talk about preservation, all the way to when we think about legacy for our grandchildren. Yep. And those changing priorities require conversation and relationship throughout our life. So that's the kind of business we bring to the marketplace. And some people do not want that, which is great. They can go find the right fit. But the people that are looking for a community to have the right processes, the right training, the right culture, will find in your practice and my practice a nuanced piece to this. How do we make this a very useful tool? Not the destination, by the way. IBC, whole life insurance, is not the destination. It's a bridge to help us understand where we are and what kind of life, what kind of values, what kind of things we want to live through, and using the tools properly to build towards that destination.
Yep. We say to every client, I want this to be the asset that you understand the most. Because when people show up to that first call with an assortment, or the financial junk drawer, as it's often called, there's a selection of assets that were not coordinated, that weren't synced, that were acquired along the way, and the knowledge may or may not be there. Just like you said with the 401k, that's most people's experience. You're just signed up for it. You don't know who's the custodian. You don't understand the ins and outs of the qualified plan. Mechanics, the RMDs, all of these factors that you should be able to spout off if you have a qualified plan. Most people cannot. Even if they've had one for 20 years, they can't tell you different the age gates and the tax implications and penalties and all these elements of it, let alone where the money actually lives, right?
Yeah.
Who's actually in charge of it. And so those elements, when people come, they rarely have comprehensive knowledge of any of their assets. And so we want this to be the one that you understand the most, because this, I think, is the most powerful tool you can have. It's the most powerful asset that your family will own. And it's like, you could get a flip phone for cheaper. So why would you pay for a smartphone? If you just want to make calls, why wouldn't you just get a flip phone? Well, because we're talking about value here, and I want you to understand the power of what you have and what you can do with it. So I want this to be the asset that you understand the most. Yeah. What does working with, like, if someone just does their initial call with Factum, are they going to work with you, or do they find someone in their area first and work with them and then get plugged into Factum? Like, what does it generally look like for someone that's starting with y'all?
Yeah. So you mentioned Kyle Fuller is the CEO of the company, and then we have also Wade Borth, who is our chief insurance officer, and those will be the two initial points of contact. Those guys some of the best in the industry. As you know, Wade has been around this industry for 35 years. New Nelson personally was one of the original members on the initial masterminds when they started talking about infinite banking. A wealth of knowledge, has worked at a carrier, so he has the experience of going and understanding the ins and out of a life insurance company like One America. So we are very blessed to have someone like him as our chief insurance officer. And Kyle is a wonderful leader, visionary. So when you come and interact with us, likely you'll do an interview with either of them or both of them, and it's truly an alignment conversation. Are you pursuing the same vision we have, serving your clients with the same values, the same desire? It'll be a conversation around what are you trying to accomplish and how does business fit into the bigger picture of how you create an abundant and ideal life for you. And I always found that very refreshing, right? They are open to understanding what you're trying to do, so we can find alignment in what Factum is trying to do and how we're trying to serve our community, number one. Now, we have a model we call the Factum way, and or levels of a business, level 6 of a business. When you come to Factum, or let me set the contracts differently. When you start in this business, right, you quickly will find out, like you and Brian have worked through, by the way, which props to you, by the way. I don't think people realize how hard and how determined the two of you have been about building a business effectively in the way you've done it. So I give you props for that, and your clients are blessed. When you enter this business, you realize, hey, I'm going to study every book around whole life insurance, and I'm going to get an expertise in all these little writers and mechanics and, product base and maybe the process. I'm going to understand infinite banking and how do you. But when you're running a business, your expertise and your knowledge is just one section of everything else that is necessary to run this business. And you start to recognize, oh my God, I'm going to need somebody to service my clients once they're in force. I need a policy service division of this team. I'm going to need a new business team, because when I onboard something into my process, I educate them and they want to implement, they're going to need an application. They're going to need to be supported through an underwriting process. So that's another part. Where's the education coming from? Where's the content, the courses, right? So at Factum, when you come to the company, we talk about, you don't come to Factum for what you get, but for who you become. And the idea here is that you have an infrastructure below you that provides all those basic components: training and coaching through Wade, multiple offerings every week, focus on success, all these different masterminds we have for agents to do self-development, okay? Book club, things like that. We have another part which is called processes and tools, which is, like I mentioned, everyone from new business to policy services, to courses, to a wealth scorecard, to a CRM, we call it the business engine, already set up for you to be productive day one in your business practice, all catered to how we run an insurance business provided to you. And in the middle, we have things, like, our culture, revenue share opportunities, profit share opportunities. We're trying to build a mutually owned company. Just like the life insurance carriers we work are mutually owned, Factum should be a mutually owned company owned by the agents and benefiting all the agents that participate in building that culture. And at the top, it would be the agent that joins us. And likely it's going to be me at the beginning doing it all. And eventually the progression is to find leverage, EAs, other junior partners, other agents that you can build a team around you. But to build that from zero, as you know, is very costly. And it's very difficult. The cost of acquisition is much larger than most think, and the timeline is much larger than most people think. I think of my experience trying to do this in 2019 from my living room. I joke about it in my boxers, trying to call people and tell them about life insurance. And today, and the difference in leverage is accelerated my business tremendously. Having somebody like Wade always teaching me, hey, don't do this, don't say this, accelerate. It took me from waiting 5 years to get my conversation to a point that was effective in months, because I leveraged 35 years of his experience. The tools and systems, like the amount of times I used to repeat the difference between base premium and PUA premium in a meeting and have meeting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Now I have a course to leverage that I can give people the opportunity to have education, spend 4, 5, 6 hours with me before we have a conversation. Very effective, very effective.
Yeah.
So great deal of leverage in a culture where, again, our values are the top most important thing, so we can serve people in the right time, so we can help them be part of our community and develop permanent control.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a great company, and we've talked to Kyle and Wade about because we're regulars at the events and often the only ones who aren't part of Factum, and you guys just open the doors and teach us. And we've talked about possibly integrating into Factum, whether we just become Factum agents or Remnant Finance powered by Factum. And we've kind of had conversations about how that might look. I want to build out what you guys have, and we're just so stubborn that we're like, we need to do this. But if it wasn't for the fact that we had, like, that we're trying to grow into that, I would have joined day one as soon as I went to that first event.
Yeah.
Those
I'll
are
tell
really,
you. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you there, but I was gonna say that desire that you express is mutual, and I'm gonna throw it back at you as you build that point. We want to learn all the things that you guys are doing too. I know the stuff that you're doing with AI, the way you're building culture in your group, like all these things. This is why the idea of collaboration is so powerful, Hans. You're being really gracious and kind with your words, but I want everyone to know that the same admiration is mutual. The things that you guys are doing, the ways you are moving as a team, the momentum you have in your community, the communication systems, the way that you're creating leverage are things, the consistency in your podcast, your marketing. These are things that a lot of us, to be honest with you, can learn from and don't have the strengths you guys have. And the powerful collaboration is one of the values. You've heard me say this live many, many times. 1+1 does not equal 2. 1+1 equals 11 in our business. And we believe that's true with our clients. We believe that's true with our agents, with our communities, with our partners. That desire is mutual. As a matter of fact, we are working on things that I'm excited to talk about here in the future. We're not ready to launch them. Opportunities to create that link where we're not competitors. We're building together. And again, just want to say that for your audience. I appreciate how gracious you are. The admiration is mutual.
yeah, appreciate that, man. Thanks. And I'm already excited for the next time we get to hang out. Anything else you want to cover today? I know we're kind of coming up on time here, but really
couple of thoughts, and I'm gonna just mention just two things that come to mind. And like, hey, for anyone in your community, for everyone listening to this podcast, you likely have been in this journey if you're part of the Remnant community, and you read Becoming Your Own Banker, and perhaps you own life insurance, and perhaps you're using life insurance. Do not suffer from the arrival syndrome, please. Just have grace, kindness with yourself, have humbleness with yourself. No man or woman stand on the same river twice. And if my invitation can be as simple as this, take this book, Becoming Your Own Banker, and read it again. The book hasn't changed, but you have. Read it again in the maturity level you are, in the understanding you have. I promise you, you'll see new things. You'll see change in you. You'll see progress. I read this book often. And every time I read it, I find new ways, and Nelson speaking to me, that I now relate to and understand and appreciate. But they're a mirror, a reflection of the growth that I've experienced in my desire to have more permanent control and become my own banker. So, invitation number one from everyone listening to this, please read this book again. You will thank us. It's 85 pages, 2 hours of your life you will not regret. If you've never read this, it's the best gift we can give you. And number two, I will repeat myself here. It's like, hey, find a community like the one you are in. Be grateful for it. Brian and you, Hans, are doing an incredible service for your community, bringing people the desire to be leaders, to be self-reliant, to be better fathers, to be better husbands, better business owners. I have an incredible amount of respect and love for you. I appreciate your example. It encourages me. It empowers me. I'll tell you, I look forward to a lifetime of collaboration and seeing our children grow into successful adults, and remembering this conversation in the future with a smile in our face, because what the things we talked about are a reflection of our future. So thank you so much for having me, brother.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. How can people reach to you if they want to get in touch, talk IBC, or is it just going to factumfinancial.com or?
Factumfinancial.com. You can email me, David Zapata, factumfinancial.com. I'm on social media, David A. Zapata. You go factumfinancial.com, get to know our team. We have foundational content that you can access for free. You can sign up for our monthly education. For any agents listening to this, we have a mastermind coming up in November in Scottsdale. I don't know if you'll be joining us, Hans, but I promise you it's going to be the best one. It's going to be the best one yet. We have a lot of practical stuff. One thing that we do in our trainings, just to last promotion here, is we're not going to lecture. anyone in that conversation. This is going to feel like a workout, and we are really excited to launch the next training session for everyone. So join us this November 2026 in Scottsdale. If you want to see the details for that, go to factumfinancial.com.
Yep, we'll be there. See you there if you are.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. For our audience, Factum Financial, David Zapata, Kyle Fuller, they're vetted and vouched for. So you'll learn great things from them. And thanks for coming on, man.
Much love to you, my friend. Blessings to you. Thank you.
All right. Cheers, man. All right. Cheers, everybody. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Remnant Finance. If you found any value at all in this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend.
Remember, true financial freedom comes from taking control of your personal economy and breaking free from the status quo. So stop being a passenger in your family's financial future.
Boldly take back control of your wealth. Until next time,
This is Brian and Hans signing off.